Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Nathan Fox, one of the founders of lsatdemon.com and the weekly podcast Thinking LSAT. With me today is Josh Mansfield, a teacher with the Demon. We have a lengthy email here from Katie asking about journalist to lawyer, ? And apparently this is shortened down by producer Ben.
Yeah. I just started studying for the LSAT, starting slow because I have a very time-consuming job as a journalist that can be 60 plus hours a week depending on the news cycle. My LSAT diagnostic was a 162. Phenomenal diagnostic.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate as a journalist so far and have worked at prestigious outlets since I have graduated over 6 years ago. I love journalism deeply, despite how taxing it has been, but it has become increasingly unstable. My background centers reporting on systematic inequalities, and I would want my legal career to reflect that. This means I'm only interested in public interest law, especially in First Amendment elections, civil rights, and democracy-related areas, which I know complicates things because I don't have money to burn.
It also complicates things because there are not that many jobs in those areas. I mean, the First Amendment does not contribute money to PACs.
Right.
You know, like the First Amendment does not do impact litigation on its own behalf.
Mm-hmm.
So you just realize that if you're wanting to be a do-gooder like this, and there's not some moneyed interest that's willing to pay for that kind of representation, you should expect that the jobs will be few and the pay will be low.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. I agree. Okay, let's keep going. I have other thoughts, but let's see what else Katie has to say first. I would also like to work part-time or freelance during law school when possible, so I'm not without any income, but I know that's tough for a 1L. Totally doable.
Bullshit.
Totally.
Yeah, we've had so many teachers, they might tell you that you're not allowed to do it, but especially if you can work online, there's no reason why you can't work.
Yeah. Definitely doable. You probably, you're going to have to be realistic about how many hours you're going to be able to work, but you can definitely work while you're a 1L. I worry about how I might make less than I do as a journalist after law school and would miss out on 3 years earnings while in law school, though I'd likely have significantly more long-term stability or job security.
I don't know about that. I mean,
I don't either.
I will tell you that. So you're worried about two things: making less than you do now as a journalist after law school. Given what you tell us you're interested in doing, it seems almost certain that you'll make less money.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, though. There are like super high prestige jobs that working for the ACLU or whatever, and
sure,
maybe those jobs actually pay decent money. But you will certainly miss out on 3 years of earnings from your full-time job. I mean, you're going to probably be able to work part-time during law school, but hardly anybody works full-time during law school unless you go to law school part-time.
Yep.
But then it's a 4-year endeavor instead of a 3-year endeavor. I'm really skeptical. I mean, hey, maybe there's like absolutely no job security in journalism. That's definitely possible.
Yes. Yep.
But that doesn't mean that there is going to be job security in law.
Well, and she talks about being at like prestigious institutions. And so hopefully that pays better, but I don't know. So I'm looking at like ACLU. I pulled it up right now.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of these ACLU are staff attorney, that are hired on limited basis, which I don't think is terribly stable. This is a 2-year term limited position, right? So, and those positions are paying litigator scale 0 to 2 years is $92,000 to $115,000. So that's for your first 2 years, and that's the ACLU.
And that's going to be incredibly difficult to get. I mean, that's going to be
incredibly competitive.
They're going to have multiple applicants from Harvard, Stanford, Yale. So if you're not going to one of these super prestige schools, I can see how your journalism background could give you an in potentially.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean you're going to be making a lot of money. And I don't think that law is a super stable career going forward in the era of AI. I mean, maybe journalism jobs are more exposed, but
all the reasons you're concerned about journalism, like, have some spillover to law. So, uh, is it worth it? I dream of going to a T14 school, but I'm okay with choosing options that are more financially viable. And that is my priority as long as I can have stable, rewarding public interest work after. Should I go for it? Will I be able to stay in the big city I'm in now and get a good public interest job without T14? Any advice on navigating the financial situation? Um, I pulled up, if I had to think of like which law school is going to have the best connections to high level public interest work that Katie here is describing, the thought to me was Georgetown, right? In DC, like now Harvard, Yale, those as well, but Georgetown was like the T14 that came to my mind. I was like, that would be the school that I would look at. 61 of their graduates went into public interest out of 661. So less than 10% at Georgetown that are based in Washington, D.C. are doing public interest.
Far
work.
more of them wanted to go into public interest.
I'm certainly.
Also, the schools are oriented toward trying to convince you that you should actually go into big law.
Of which 361 of them did.
Right. So it's like, and I'm going to say it's like half of the class every year thinks they're going to go into public interest. But no, the majority of the class every year is going to actually, in fact, go into big law.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I think what would be a recommendation would be like, look up in the city you're in the kind of public interest work you're interested in, and then go look at those attorneys. How many of them are there? Do they have any open positions right now? Where are those attorneys? Where did they get their education? Like just looking at that kind of information can give you a sense of the incredibly competitive nature of the endeavor that you are describing.
Should we read producer Ben's notes here?
Sure.
He says, Katie's email was much longer before I edited it down. As someone actively navigating this pivot from journalism to law school myself,
Ben's doing that.
I came away from the whole email with one question she ought to answer. Do you want, quote, stability? Or do you want to be a lawyer? She included this line, which Ben cut for space, but I'm going to read it anyway. It says, I also feel a law degree will help me make the level of impact I want to, and I'd be especially excited to help support clients facing complex processes designed to keep them out. This is the only time she approaches discussing what draws her to the law or lawyer work. Ben then continues, he says, also, this is my personal hobby horse. First Amendment specifically is a very niche practice limited to a small number of white shoe firms in New York and DC. If that's the goal, then it truly is T14 or bust. Apparently, Ben has done some research into this already and knows that, hey, if you want to do First Amendment work, it's going to be geographically limited and they're going to have their pick of T14 graduates. So where Katie said, will I be able to stay in the big city I'm in now? Don't know without knowing the big city you're currently in.
If that big city's DC, then probably.
New York or DC, there are First Amendment jobs there. But again, they're not going to pay as much as you want them to pay. They're also going to be harder to get than you might imagine. My advice would be, if you're going to continue down this road, do not accumulate significant debt because financially this is going to work out in just completely against you if all you want to do is public interest. If you can get a scholarship to a T14, and T14s do give scholarships, then I suppose at least it limits your risk going in. But if you're not open to any other kind of legal work, this seems like a wildly risky play. For example, one area of legal work that I think Katie should seriously be considering is criminal defense or criminal prosecution. Sure. She probably sees herself as like this do-gooder and thinks that means you have to work for the defense. But there's an awful lot of good that can be done exercising prosecutorial discretion.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, based on what you're saying, I don't know. To me, I see crim as public interest.
I do too. Yeah. Uh,
So it's
like
not like headline grabbing stuff like elections and civil
uh-huh.
rights and defending
I'll,
democracy and all
I'll,
that.
I'll add a I'll add a couple other like positions.
Mm-hmm.
I had the opportunity to be involved in a city level position,
Mm-hmm.
and those attorneys are dealing with like due process in terms of like zoning and easements and annexations that
Sure.
are sometimes without the consent of all property owners.
Yeah.
They also have First Amendment, like open meeting laws. So it's a lot less like do goody, like save the world feeling kind of work, but it is very tangentially and closely related to the kind of work that you are like the constitutional nature of the work that you've described.
Well, yeah.
So
She says, you know, supporting clients facing complex processes designed to keep them out. Well, the city attorney is not going to be representing those clients, but city attorney is going to have probably a pretty solid voice in the matter. If you're worried about people not having access to certain city services or whatever,
mm-hmm.
that's probably going to come across your desk and you're going to have some some stake in it.
Yeah. So I think there's some interest there. But you should have plan A and then plan B and then plan C and probably plan D before you go to law school.
Plan A,
Because
definitely. If you're doing
yeah,
this at all for financial reasons, plan A is do not pay for law school.
yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and then sure, like shoot your shot and try to get this prestigious constitutional
People get
nonprofit.
them. And it does sound like Katie is going to be very if she goes to the right school, does well at the right school, it sounds like she could be a very competitive applicant because of her experience at
I agree. Yeah.
a prestigious journalism company. So it's not to say that we think you're a bad candidate for this. There's just a lot of really good candidates who are going to be trying to get those jobs.
Yeah, the best news is she started with a 162.
Yep.
So you started with a 162, you should finish with a 175 or higher.
Mm-hmm.
If you finish with a 175 or higher, then now you're potentially a scholarship applicant in the top 14. Plan on working part-time while you're in school. Hopefully you're not paying tuition. You will be sacrificing some earnings, probably going to pay some fees, if not some tuition.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you can minimize the debt and then just be open to, a lot of people make that exact same decision.
Yep.
And 3 years, 4 years later, they find themselves working in big law.
The one other thing I might recommend, I think you've talked about this, you and Ben have talked about this on the pod before. But I read on being a happy, healthy, and ethical member of an unhappy, unhealthy, and unethical profession.
Yes.
Like, I think that should be required reading before you go to law school.
Totally. Must read before anybody goes to law school.
Yeah. Yes.
And if
that's the generic you, not you, Katie, but
no,
everyone.
That's a must read for everybody. What's the title of that again?
Yeah, and we'll make sure to link it in the show notes, but it's on being a happy, healthy, and ethical member of an unhappy, unhealthy, and unethical profession. It's by Patrick J. Schultz.
Read it with an open mind. If you decide it's complete bullshit, fine. But it was written by a law professor. So,
yep.
I've probably got some idea what's going on in law. Thank you, Katie.
Email daily at lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.